Hi, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. This is Supriya Gosh, and I'm the product lead of Rakuten 6 Sense API Security Observability. Today, for the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to take you through some of the most pressing challenges that we see in APIs and its usages, and then explore strategies as in how can we avoid or mitigate this kind of large-scale outages or this kind of issues that keep happening with your APIs. So APIs, as you all know, are the backbone of modern applications. They are the ones which enable seamless integrations and power your digital transformation. But with this huge power also comes risk. So APIs are increasingly becoming the primary attack vector for cybersecurity criminals across the globe. And a single breach can have devastating impact on your organization. So our goal today is to help you understand how critical API security is for your org and in today's API ecosystem, and what do you need to address and what do you need to do to ensure that your APIs are secure. So let's get started as we speak around the webinar topic of avoiding the API apocalypse. So as I said, APIs are everywhere. They are in fact the glue that holds our modern applications together. But with this ubiquity also comes vulnerability. So here are some of those alarming stats that has been portrayed uniformly across most of our white papers in the cybersecurity fields. So 34% of data breach in the last 365 days has been eventually tied to API and their inherent vulnerabilities. 9 of 10 orgs has had some sort of an API security incident in the past 1 year. As we know, API is a powerhouse of information. So a single API breach can potentially leak 10x more data than a website breach or a website vulnerabilities. And above all, 180 days. That's the average time it takes for an engineering team across any org to fix an open vulnerability or an open security issues in your APIs. So APIs, in fact, are not just a technical issue. It's not just an engineering team's headache. In fact, they are the business disruptors in today's world. 83% of today's internet traffic is all about APIs. As I said, APIs power everything, every industry that we see in the digital landscape today. A single outage means lost revenues, eroding your company's trust, damaging your brand, and above all, it's that huge operational chaos that the org or the department needs to go through. So no longer APIs is just a CISO or a CISO driven newsletter. It's in fact a board level conversation that's happening across every org. So this list is just not confined to this one page. This is just the beginning of the API breaches across some of the lengths and breadths of our industries, whether you're a fintech or you're a bank or you are a healthcare or you are an e-retailer. And more than that, it has impacted orgs who has had got firewalls and maybe even a gateway, yet they had made it to the headlines for all the wrong reasons. So as I said, 92% of the companies has had some sort of an API attack or an API incident in the past 1 year. And if you take a look at why are the security issues being found in your production APIs, it's predominantly these three factors on your left hand side. It's all about your inherent vulnerabilities, it's all about the lack of authentication or the lack of a proper authorization in your APIs, as well as the data that is being exposed and whether it is sensitive or PII that is also being exposed to these APIs. In fact, it has become such a matter of utmost urgencies that some of the well-known regulators across a country, across the globe, like the NIST, SEBI, CERT-In, had started publishing guidelines around how can you prevent API breaches, how can you protect your APIs, and eventually this might tie up into a mandate coming across from some of these regulators. So why is API security such a huge blind spot? I mean, we all have WAFs, we all have gateways, or maybe a load balancer, or maybe a service mesh, but still, in spite of that, what is that this edge devices miss, that is resulting in API breaches, or that is resulting in attackers exploiting your API vulnerabilities. It is the inherent nature of these devices in the first place. WAFs and API gateways are primarily focusing on your perimeter security. They have global policies of whitelisting or blacklisting IPs. They have certain level of API protection like DDoS mitigation or basic security misconfiguration checks, or maybe even to detect or maybe even provide a basic level of authentication authorization over the APIs that is being exposed to the public. But at the same time, what they lack is monitoring the east-west traffic, monitoring the traffic that is basically inside your applications, providing a comprehensive OWASP top 10 vulnerability detection as well as mitigation, analysis of your API usages, analysis of your API level data, like how are they called, where are they being called, what is the signature around how a user uses some of these APIs, etc. A real-time payload analysis of your APIs, and more than all, it's the data that is being conveyed through these APIs, if they are PIIs or any sensitive information. In fact, it's not just us. Some of the well-known security publications as well as some of the well-known agencies across the globe keep highlighting the fact that you cannot or you should not rely on just your perimeter security to protect your APIs. I mean, they are not just sufficient to protect the custom apps or the custom application level microservices that is powering your businesses today. And on top of that, you have AI. So AI has done a lot of damage in terms of the way cyber security criminals are attacking the APIs. Like, AI has speed up the entire way how this reconnaissance happens, how the attack happens in the first place. There has been enormous increase in the number of bot traffic. There has been an enormous increase in the attempts in terms of credential stuffing, injection attacks that has been possible just because we have AI, you have LLM powered programs, you have LLM powered bots, which is helping the cybersecurity criminals attack or detect the vulnerabilities in your APIs and thereby exploit them. So let's look at some of the real life incidents. I'll take you through a couple of how has API breaches happened and what has resulted in such breaches. So this is a classic example of pre-COVID API attack, which had literally taken over the headlines in the West. So it was a very famous P2P payment partner. And there was an ethical hacker who had identified a vulnerable list of APIs from the traffic of the live feed of their homepage itself. And then he identified that there were certain vulnerabilities which was around the authentication of this API. It had a very basic authentication which was easily hackable. The APIs lack object level authorization in the first place. And even though there was a rate limit, the rates were typically very high, which was above the numbers that we have published out here. So what the attacker did was he scraped all the transactions across that API and started pulling around 100k daily transactions, even, as I said, with a rate limit in place. Another breach analysis which we have is from a well-known bank or global bank, and here it was typically around the SSRF or server-side request forgery. So the attacker had bypassed certain rules in the WAF, and that was predominantly because there was some security misconfigurations, and he or she basically exploited a server-side request forgery vulnerability in a web application eventually into the API. And then you have this classic example of post-COVID API attack, which was in fact targeting one of the credit risk agencies. And here the hacker compromised a third party or a vendor API that integrated with this particular company for FICO score check. And what the vendor API what the vendor API did not have was a proper authentication, lack of authorization token, which in fact led to, a huge list of credit risk data being explored, being exploited, and eventually being sold into the dark web. So how can you secure APIs, or what are some of those best practices that you have to defend against these modern API threats? Yes, one of the primary requirement out here is to understand your attack surface, is to understand what are those APIs that your organization has, whether it's your internal APIs, whether it's your external APIs, or whether it's including your third-party integrations. One needs to either have a mechanism or implement a tool that can provide a continuous discovery of the APIs that is in motion, the APIs at rest, and also those APIs which are eventually housed in your system but are neither being called or not identified as part of your security scans, which is basically your host populations, that is the zombies, shadows, or however we call it. Next out there is, once you have identified each and every APIs, you need to ensure that you have certain basic authorizations and authentications that is enabled across these APIs. More stronger your authentication and authorization mechanisms, the more difficult it becomes for your attackers to come and exploit those APIs, even if they're a public facing one, even if they have been detected across their reconnaissance activities. Bare minimum, you need to have an OAuth 2.0 or a MFA included in terms of your API usages. You need to have role-based access in terms of the authorization, or in terms of the users who is authorized to access the various information being dished out from these APIs. You need to control the way how these APIs are being called, or how many times these APIs are being called. So we need to have some basic rate limiting, or even have a system that can detect or call out a bot traffic from the real human traffic out there. Next, on the most important point, you need to have a thorough or maybe a continuous scan of all your APIs, whether it's your internal endpoints or your external facing endpoints, and ensure that they have a very robust security inbuilt. So you need to ensure that none of your APIs, or none of your business critical APIs, or none of your external facing APIs, as well as your third-party integrations, should be having any sort of an OWASP top 10 risk, having an OWASP top 10 vulnerability inherent in their source code or inherent in their integrations. You also need to have some sort of a monitoring or a protection tool that keeps observing the API traffic in real time and ensuring that there are enough guardrails or alerts or notifications in place that will eventually call out if there is a bad usage or if there is a bad attacker in the system. And all the more if it's on an autopilot mode that can eventually store or learn from these attacks that has happened and give you a preemptive as well as a proactive way to secure attacks even before they come and exploit your APIs. Next out there is, why just wait for your runtime environment, and why just wait for all these runtime practices to secure your APIs? Try securing them from your lower environments in itself, your staging, your UAT, your pre-prod. Have API security mechanisms in your CI/CD itself. Have some secure dev practices which ensure that the impact or exploitability quotient of your APIs or their vulnerabilities is reduced more and more as they travel across the environments and finally getting launched into the production. And lastly, for organizations which has AIs and AI models or LLM models, ensure you have proper data integrity and as well as data confidentiality checks to protect your AI models, to protect this AI powered LLM data, etc. So how can an API security solution or a software solution help you rather act as the first line of defense in your API ecosystem? So a typical or a modern day application security solution will help you gain full visibility into your API traffic. As I said, it's not just your north south or the east west traffic, but including these ghost populations like shadows and unmanaged APIs, which are in fact the weakest link in your security fortress. This kind of solution also detects threat, whether it's AI driven, ML driven, and helps you enforce posture governance continuously. They monitor real-time API behavior to catch misuses, injection attacks, and anomalies as they happen. And as I said, some of them might even be able to predict attacks based on the traffic, based on the IPs, based on the signatures that is there with inherent API call, and give you a preemptive or I would say a rather proactive way to capture this kind of misuses. Such solutions also prevent sensitive data exposure. They help you monitor the data in motion and let you know in case of any PIIs or custom sensitive data as well if they are being exposed. They also help you accelerate the response with their intelligent alerts, with their traffic level insights, and help you with faster RCA, faster investigations. Lastly, they help you integrate seamlessly into their CI/CD pipelines, and this is absolutely non-intrusive, code-free deployments, which eventually will uplift the overall security posture assessment of your API ecosystem. So with that, I introduced Rakuten 6 Sense API security and observability platform. So this in fact helps you with each and every feature that I have been outlining in the previous deck or in the previous page of my deck. So Rakuten 6 Sense helps you gain full visibility into your API traffic, calling out especially your shadows, zombies, etc. It automatically discovers your changes in the APIs and will undergo a vulnerability assessment of these endpoints, and all of this without the need of any pre-documentation, without the need of your swaggers or your postman collections, etc. It in fact helps produce up-to-date OpenAPI specs, which can also be used by the engineering teams to update their own API documentations, their API contracts. We also detect threats using our proprietary AI-driven models and help enforce posture governance continuously. We monitor real-time API behavior, whether it's your payloads, whether it's your user interference, or it's even the various header level information, and that's what helps catch misuse, injections, and anomalies as they happen. We detect PIIs or custom sensitive data as and when highlighted by the organizations for any APIs in motion. And lastly, as I said, we have intelligent alerts and traffic level insights that help you with faster investigations, with faster remediations of the vulnerabilities that has been detected in your APIs. So overall, it's a purpose-built API security solution which gives you a comprehensive visibility into your API ecosystem, advanced threat detection capability, detailed posture governance of all the endpoints discovered, and of course it has the ability to scale at your enterprise level. So coming back to this breach analysis around the P2P vendor and the global bank, and trying to see how does Rakuten 6 Sense kind of help if there was ever such vulnerability, or if there was ever such a security incident with your respective organization. So in this case of this P2P payment vendor, it was all about your broken authentication or lack of authorization. And how can 6 Sense help you in this is we would help you highlight the susceptible API endpoints that is potentially having a BOLA or a BFLA authentication misconfiguration. you'd alert a breach in real time, and at the same time we would monitor the egress data and the resource consumption and help you with intelligent alerts if there is a security incident detected, which is generally not the signature of your regular API traffic. In the other example around the global bank, where the attacker had bypassed a WAF due to WAF level misconfiguration and exploited an SSRF. So in this case, again, using our continuous scan or a posture assessment tool, we can highlight the various API misconfigurations across the susceptible endpoints. We monitor unusual consumption of backend resource and at the same time help identify any sort of a bot attack or a credential stuffing attack. So what's preventing you from taking the next steps in terms of securing your APIs before the next incident, or I would say before the next risk incident in your organization? So help us help your evaluation of the API systems, wherein your current WAFs or your current edge perimeter devices fall short, especially for your APIs outside your gateway visibility. Help us access your API security posture with Rakuten 6 Sense. You can call for a personalized demo, you can call for a POC, and we would be more than happy to help you secure your APIs and have your API ecosystem, or act as the first line of defense in your API ecosystem. So thank you. That's all I had for today. Thanks once again, I would say, for joining and being a part of this 15 to 20 minutes webinar. So in fact, I would ask you to please feel free and connect with me on LinkedIn or follow Rakuten 6 Sense for more such updates on API security or other observability suites that 6 Sense provides in today's modern world.